Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Thanks so much for coming to watch. We're doing a tumbler. It says Forever Chasing the Sun, which is me, and it was kind of a Hawaiian print-inspired, glittery, fun tumbler. It was actually inspired from a shower curtain I saw on Facebook Marketplace, believe it or not, and I thought, I want to recreate that. So I had a lot of fun doing this one. It's a little bit complicated, but I learned a lot doing the keychain first, which was a good way to do it. And so we're going to get started. We're going to start with just a acrylic tumbler that I have spray painted white in flat white spray paint. And I've let it sit for a couple of days to off gas because I am going to be using Brite tone for this one. If you are using epoxy because you prefer it, that's fine. Just you don't need to off gas it. You can just start going right away. So I did spray paint it white, and then it's going to turn blue in a second, and I have spray painted it just the blue that I wanted. I just used an acrylic paint, and I used my airbrush. If you have lots of spray paints and you prefer to do it that way works too. I just don't have a lot of spray paints, so I just mixed some acrylic paints together. You could use a brush if you wanted. I like my airbrush. It gives a very, very smooth finish. So you want to kind of match your glitter a little bit. I don't want this solid glitter. I did want some of the color to show through. So I, made sure that I liked the color underneath. So I'm just going to cover it in a glitter glue. You can use Tack It, you can use Mod Podge, you can just go straight on with epoxy. It's however you like to do it. I'm going to go on with my glitter glue and just give it a really good coat. There we go. And I'm a finger spreader. You can use whatever you like. You can use your silicone brush. You can use your tack-on brush. You can use an old paintbrush. I try to use water-based products because I do just like to use my finger. I like to feel the product. It helps me determine that it's all smooth and good. I'm very textile that way. But, it's each their own. Try a couple different techniques. See what makes you happy and gives you your favorite result. I had better luck with this glitter glue second time round. I still find it a little bit thin, when you get used to the Tack It, and it's so thick, and you can get a really nice, thick coat. It just, gotta try things a couple of times and see how it works, but I was much happier with this tumbler than my previous one. And I think that's, when I use my finger, I do think I get a better coat. And don't forget the bottom. Make sure you give it a good coat as well. All right, I've let it dry a little tiny bit, maybe for a couple of minutes, 5 or 6 minutes, and I'm just going to go on with my glitter and liberally apply as it spins. This makes a big mess. I have to figure out how to do it a little bit cleaner. Oh man, there was glitter absolutely everywhere. Maybe holding it is better than letting it turn. But I had glitter absolutely everywhere. It was like a glitter bomb went off. It was spectacular. When you find glitter everywhere after you do a craft, like you find it in your bathroom and you're like, wow, how did that get there? That was me on this one. There was glitter tracked slowly throughout my entire house. It was amazing. It was, one of the reasons I'm not best friends with glitter. I do love it. I love the look of it. I just don't like how it hangs around for a while. It's like my dog's hair. When you think it's all gone, it just comes back to find you. I'm so sorry about the angle here. I have built a unit to make my angles better, to view them back from the top again. So I do promise they will get better in my videos to come. This cup ended up taking a little while. So, I do work on things kind of after work and in the middle of the night and on weekends. So sometimes things can take a little bit longer than expected when things come up. So I'm just actually taking the cup and I'm stamping it into the pile of glitter to get the bottom. It worked really well. There was glitter everywhere. So spread out your glitter, make sure it's how you look. This glitter has a lot of really fun translucent pieces in it. I'm just, make sure everything is as you like it, as best you can, I guess is the other way to put it. It was all stuck to my fingers. Told you, glitter everywhere. It was unreal. When in doubt, add more glitter. Just, it's already everywhere. Just keep going. This glitter was from Glitter Babes & Co., I believe they're called. It's really pretty. It's really, really a pretty glitter. I'll try to link it below. I was really happy with it. I really liked the translucent bits in it. It looked really neat. Almost an oceany type look to it with almost pastel bits that went with it. It was really pretty. It is really pretty. No, it was. I do record most of my voiceovers after the fact. Therefore, if I screw something up, I can re-voice over. Trying to clean up the glitter, but it's everywhere. So I let it sit for a little while, I think about an hour, and I'm just using a piece of parchment paper, and I'm going to just rub down all the glitter, trying to get it as smooth as you can. Especially with this really chunky glitter, it just means more and more coats of your epoxy or brite tone or whatever you like to seal your tumbler in. So I, try to get it as smooth as you can. I've skipped this step and regretted it. So try your best to get it smooth. One happy glittery tumbler. You can see I let some of the blue come through. I didn't want a solid color. It's like almost a sea color. I could see this one using, seashells and stuff on it. It's kind of fun. Now my E6000 spray. I'm going to give her a good spray. Seal in that glitter so it doesn't go moving around on you. Oh, here I am with my funny angles. Fixing it, I promise. I don't really know how much of the stuff you need. I apply liberally. It seems to still come through clear, and my glitter seems well sealed. And everything around me is sticky. My turner went backwards there for some reason. There it goes. Some people just go right on with their epoxy and just start sealing. I don't know. It really creates a good barrier. A really good, your glitter doesn't move at all. There it is, all sealed in. So I sped this up quite a bit because nobody wants to watch me brite tone over and over and over again. I added, I think it took 3 or 4 layers of brite tone to really seal in the glitter. Because we're going on and going to paint on top of it, it needs to be pretty smooth. Actually needs to be really smooth before you move on to the next step. So take your time, give it a couple coats, keep going until you're really happy with the finish. I'm using a pipette here. I have finally found bottles. I just happen to have pipettes around. Use what you got sometimes. It worked just fine. The bottle is slightly more convenient. If you like a brite tone over epoxy you probably just need 1 good coat, maybe 2. I don't really epoxy much. I just use UV epoxy for keychains. I don't really have the facilities and proper ventilation for epoxy. It's cold in Canada. I don't even like spray painting. My whole house smells like spray paint even when I open the garage and, it's pouring rain outside for most of the winter where I am. I did find it needed a bit of a sand, so I gave it a quick sanding before my last coat of brite tone. I just wasn't 100% happy with the finish with the chunky glitter. So it's a personal call. I did want a really, really smooth finish before I went on with it. So now I'm escaping to the bathroom to give it a rinse. There we go. And I'm just going to give it one final coat of the bright tone. I think I've got this on ×4. There we go. And when you're super happy, we'll progress to the next step, and I'm going to pop into Cricut Design Space in a second. I'm really happy with how this tumbler turned out, actually. It's really pretty. I wish the camera picked up how pretty it was in person. The colors are just so bright, and there's so much detail. It really doesn't do it justice. It's too bad. So back in Cricut Design Space, there we go. I've got a template of about the same size of the tumbler. I did discover doing this that the tumbler is a slightly skinnier in one part as it goes down. And I you know, this isn't the exact template I used. Design Space wasn't loading properly from my iPad. So just quickly here, I wanted to show you, I just took my elements and I just kept copying them over and over and over again. My forewarning here is know how many there are, because I did have one that hid behind the square and it screwed up some of my cuts. I actually point that out after I cut it because it made a bit of a mess, but it worked just fine. So, you know, just keep fiddling with your elements until you're happy with it. Turning them around, make them, you know, this will be kind of your final looks. So it's kind of your opportunity to get a sneak peek of how it's going to turn out, because we're going to be cutting this as a whole and putting it on as a whole piece. So the flowers, I've left the outline. We're going to cut the outline out in a holographic material. So I will uncontour them in a minute. I don't know why. Oh, I deleted that by accident. So just keep adding to it until you're happy. Turn things around, move them around. There you go. I'm going to take out the contour for this cut. So for the actual piece that I'm going to paint, I want it just the outline, and then I'm going to cut the detail of the flower after in a holographic material. So for each of these, I'm just going to remove the contour. I should have removed it first, but hindsight. I was just trying to do this quickly because Design Space was really fighting with me. I think it's because my iPad updated and my computer had not updated, so they were two different versions and I couldn't get one to load on the other. I had originally just done this on my iPad. But if I want to record what I'm doing, it really works better to record what I'm doing from my laptop screen. I really like Cricut Design Space for the iPad. It works really, really well. It fights with me a little bit less. I wish I could do curved text. I do a lot of my own SVGs as well. If anybody's interested in seeing how I do those, I use a program called Affinity Designer, and make them into vectors. You know, I don't. A lot of people use Procreate, but I much prefer designing them in vectors. I like the control I have to change things. So okay, I've made everything happy. I added more than this, but just as an example, and I've just made the exterior of the flower a different color, so it cuts on a different sheet. So just move that aside, and I'm going to highlight everything and press attach. I want it all to cut together on one sheet. I know it seems strange, but it worked. And then skip to. Here is my sheet all cut. You can see here, that's where that hidden piece was. It was like almost cross section to another one. I was just really careful when I was peeling it. Take your time. Make sure you're really, really happy with your placement, because once it's on there, I mean, this thing took a while to cut because I cut it from my iPad. It's a little bit slower when you're cutting from a Bluetooth connection. It's the only downside to my iPad. I do like the foam part of these, what do they call them, brayers, or, the word's not coming to me. I just find it doesn't stick and scratch things up as much. I cut the transfer paper. I cut the paper that the vinyl is on, just so I only wanted to take off half at a time, starting in the middle, to try to get the best attachment I could without any bubbles. So I started there was a little bit of fiddling with this because once it's on, and I kind of didn't get a redo this time. There you go. So I'm just starting from the middle. Some of the little pieces wanted to come up. I think this was the most time-consuming part, was trying to get the stencil on properly. It was a bit of a show, actually, to be honest. And then that fell off. I was looking for tape. I don't think I found any. Move on. So I started from the middle and just, as I took the base layer off, rubbed it on slowly, made sure that there was no bubbles. Got that stencil on. As best I could. Ooh. A drink of water. Ever used that Mio, that drink squirt? I got a lemon one, and it's interesting. Leaves a... No, it's not very good. Wouldn't get that one again. So again, starting from the other, from the middle outwards. A little bit at a time, about an inch at a time. Take your time, get it perfect. If you have bubbles in your stencil, the paint will leak underneath. You won't get a nice finish. So all good things, just take time. I wanted the ends to meet up as best I could, so I was cutting off excess transfer paper. I think it was pretty close. I think I only had to create a small piece at the top. We're almost there, I promise. And this is another one you want to take your time and make sure everything stays on the cup. You want a solid piece all the way around, and then we're going to go and remove just the pieces we want. I use my airbrush on this with alcohol inks. You can use whatever you have, whatever makes you happy. You don't need to airbrush it. I like the evenness I get with an airbrush. You could try it with alcohol inks, with the felt pads. You could use acrylic paints if you wanted to. If you used acrylic paints, please make sure, if you're using Brite Tone, to seal it with some sort of sealer before you continue, or else the acrylic paint will run because they're both water-based. Probably a a Rust-Oleum clear. So I'm just using my weeding pen, and I'm taking out all the white bits, which is all the fern-like pieces. So one color at a time. I do speed up this process in the rest of the video, so I try to speed up things. I'm kind of guessing on what I think people would like to watch versus what to speed up. Part of the reason I do the voiceovers after the fact, so I can, talk at the speed that the video is, rolling at, so I don't sound like a chipmunk. So go careful. This one was a little bit hard to see again because there was I think there was one or two pieces that ended up behind and cutting through. But take it all the ones, I know you can't see them here, and the reason I'm moving the cup around a lot is with the bright lights for the camera. I couldn't 100% see, so some of it I ended up doing off camera. There you go, they're all done. The airbrushes the alcohol inks so beautifully. I can't believe how beautifully. I don't have to add anything to it. They're so even and wonderful. I was using a much cheaper airbrush compressor right off the. I was trying to get a mini one because I thought it would be a space saver, but it ended up just being a nightmare. But when you have a good compressor, I think mine was 150 Canadian, which means you can probably get it for $100 in the States. And this is a really cheap airbrush. This is a Masters, I think. It's not, an eye water or anything special. I've got those on my desk somewhere, and you can see it taken apart because it got all full of gunk. But, it doesn't take much. There's so much available now on Amazon. I just quickly sprayed on my white. I run a little bit of alcohol through my airbrush just to clean it out a bit before the next color. I think I mixed the white with the pearl white. The pearl white's a little bit more translucent. I do find the straight white is very opaque, and I wanted the glitter to be able to shine through, so I mixed it with a little bit of the pearl. But I do find the pearl alcohol inks clog the airbrush a little bit. I kind of have to do a little bit more fiddling with those. Whatever additive, that mica or whatever they add to the alcohol inks, I don't know, it seems to just be a micrometer too thick, and I can't quite figure it out. Just, that little smidgen so it doesn't flow through properly. But, if your airbrush does clog or you need to mix a color, you put your finger on the tip and you blow it back and watch it bubble. I learned to airbrush when I was a teenager, and I didn't use it for 20 years. It just kind of sat in a drawer. So I've got an old Iwata from the 90s. Early 2000s, so I won't date myself that late. Early 2000s. And, they last forever if you take care of them and keep them clean. So, it seems like, I guess a good airbrush can seem like a lot, but if it lasts you the rest of your life, they've barely changed. I took the whole thing apart. I even remember how to put it back together. It was full of old makeup gunk from prosthetics. So it all came clean, though. I'm just taking off the pieces for the next color very carefully. Pointy tweezers from a diamond painting. They're amazing for this. The nice thing also about the airbrush is you can really build the color. You can put it on, and if you're not happy, you can just keep adding it darker and darker and darker as you go. Again, I am sorry about the angle. I promise it will be better on my next videos. I have finally figured out how to do an overhead mount without having to order a bunch of special equipment. I just don't have the space. I have a hard time even finding room for tripods, so I kind of made a big unit that has my lights attached to it. I'm just using a little piece of paper to block off any areas that I don't want to hit with the airbrush with the blue, mostly the white so it doesn't get contaminated. Airbrush has a wide spray. I should try this with the felt pads that come with the alcohol inks and just see how it differs. Get more of a mottled look. I am really excited on how the airbrush works though. Like it's such a beautiful color. I'm looking at the cup right now. I can't believe how different it looks on camera. This is actually almost a turquoise color. It really comes off as a royal blue, doesn't it? Interesting. Oh, I think I found one random one. I had to go back. I'm literally just putting a drop of alcohol in at a time. I try not to waste. Alcohol inks are expensive. Everything's expensive in Canada. Sometimes I end up on the American Michaels site and I'm like, ooh, everything's so cheap. What? And then I look up and I go, oh, no, Bellingham. That's not my nearest Michaels store. And I get really sad and I go on the Canadian site. So now we're going to do the pink flowers. And the one thing I did notice when I did the keychain is I wasn't 100% happy with the color of the pink because it's so translucent. It really picked up the bluish tone underneath. So after I pick all the flowers off, I did use a bit of the pearl white and just lightly lighten the areas before I did the pink. I also didn't want the pink to mix with any of the other colors, so I went on my Cricut with a piece of cardstock and I just cut out of the one of the flowers so that I had a bit of a stencil to lay on top. And it worked really, really well to prevent the pink from overspraying. Um, much better than when I tried to use the vinyl on the keychain. And it was just enough to keep it, contained enough for when I put the decal on top. The alcohol ink dries so fast. It's so quick because of that. It's really awesome. This is flamingo pink, the dreaded flamingo pink. Oh, I just drank that lemonade again. It kind of tastes like perfume. Oh. That's the definition of going crazy, is repeating the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Keep drinking it, expecting it to taste good, and it really just doesn't. Not sure if you can hear my neighbor's dogs going apoplectic, but they're sure doing it well out there. Couple final touches, and the next step is to peel all of the leftover vinyl off. It's actually there's my box. That's how I peel it off. I use an old Kleenex box and use it to keep the tip of my pen clean, or else I end up with little bits of vinyl everywhere. This was actually kind of satisfying. It took a little while, but it was so pretty to see the contrast and to see the patterns really come out as I pulled off the vinyl. I use these tweezers for everything. They're super pointy. I hate them for diamond painting. I use a very blunted pair for diamond painting. But for this, these tweezers are amazing. Oh, I found something I didn't like. Always go back and touch it up. Make sure you're happy, because you can't go back. There we go. So here I've picked everything off. You can see all the definition you get. And you can still see the sparkles underneath the alcohol ink. And I'm just going to add the holographic decals. I'm obsessed with this holographic vinyl right now. It really just makes me happy. I don't know, kind of added to the happy, glittery, shiny. Oh, there it goes. Look. And I wish you could see the true colors of this. It looks so blue in comparison to what's in front of me. I think I was trying to show you an overcut. The holographic sometimes overcuts. This really just took minutes. It really was not a big process. I always reuse my transfer paper too, as much as I can. I hate the waste. I do find all this stuff makes quite a bit of waste. I try to keep it down as much as I can. Isn't that nice? It adds a nice little definition to the whole thing, to your flowers. I love that the glitter shows through the alcohol inks. There we go. I'm really excited about this new Cricut feature. This, how you can add the shadow, because I had to go and draw an SVG of this and then put it in as a picture in, the old school way we used to do it in Cricut Design Space. And then I used my iPad and despeckled it a whole bunch. You make it thicker that way. If anybody uses an iPad, you know what I'm talking about when you, I think it's despeckling or smoothing, and you smooth it a whole bunch and it makes it thicker. And now, about 2 days after I did this, that new feature came out on the Cricut. I was so sad. I was like, oh, it would have looked so much better. Actually, it was a couple days after I sealed it, so I couldn't even go back. So I was so sad because it would have looked better with that feature. It would have been a more proper, more better shadow effect. I did originally put the Forever Chasing the Sun just straight on the tumbler, and I ended up pulling it off because you could barely see it. I could see it, but I knew what it said, but I knew that it needed something to make it pop a little bit more. So I peeled it off, created the background color in the white. I saw this, I think Pinterest probably, and I liked it, Forever Chasing the Sun. feel like that's my family. We're not winter people. We're terrible Canadians for that. We like to visit the snow. It's fun to look at Christmas time. There goes my bad camera angles again. I'm excited for my new camera mount. This was really hard to do in a tumbler. In my infinite wisdom, once again, I used the wrong transfer paper and should have used clear. No matter which one I use, I always get halfway through it and think, why did I do this? Why did I use this transfer paper? I've got 2 different kinds for a reason. Tired mom syndrome, I guess. This is about the moment I realized that this piece was way too big to go around and get it perfectly on the cup, so I cut it. You do what you gotta do. Terrible camera angles. Oh man, I am sorry here, guys. Ooh, really dropped the ball. It's like I slowly pushing it out of the camera frame. It's also really hard to line things up. I'm realizing that in doing my own videos that I used to be like in my head thinking, what are these people doing? Like, why isn't it straight? Why isn't it? But when you do it on camera, it's really hard because you can't like stand over top of it. You're always on these weird angles trying to get these things to look, trying to get these things all lined up. It's a lot harder than, than it looks. I fully understand now, and I'm sorry for all those people that I was questioning in my head, what are you doing? Because it's way different when you're doing it from a strange angle. You don't want to lose your light. You don't want your head to be, the only thing in shot. So you're kind of standing back, trying to get it at a good angle. Ta-da! All the decals are done. Yay! It's so pretty. This was like a tumbler. I was like, I'm gonna challenge myself with something, and it was just like, how can I make this work? I used extreme protection on this. Uh, Alcohol ink is not UV stable. It will fade quite a bit with UV. So I used this to give it a little bit of extra UV protection. I do find though, I don't know if anybody else finds this, when you use extreme protection and you put, I did 2 layers of extreme protection and a couple layers of bright tone. I do find that it almost gets little indentations, little pock marks that you have to sand out near the end. I'm not sure if anybody else has discovered that or if maybe I'm doing something wrong, but I do find when I use the 2 together, I don't get a perfectly smooth finish unless I give it a really good sand right before my last bright tone application. So I did do 2 extreme protection and I think 3 or 4 bright tone. until it was perfectly smooth. And here it is all done. I think it turned out really, really beautiful. I had a lot of fun figuring out how I was going to do this one. I wanted to thank you all for watching. If you don't mind, hitting that little subscribe button and leaving a comment down below and letting me know how I did on this. A like always goes a long way as well. Thank you so, so much for watching. I really, really hope you enjoyed this video. Have a good night.